Welcome back, everybody. It is the Awesemo.com Live Before Lock show. Haven't been on Live Before Lock for a while, but we're going to treat it kind of as a hybrid Live Before Lock, MLB strategy. Just 2 games today, but as you've seen for the last few Mondays, it's myself, Jake Hari, and Terry McBride. Team McB, what's up, man? I feel like I haven't talked to you in a while, but it's only been 6 days.
Yeah, it hasn't been that long, but somehow a lot's gone on out in the world, in baseball, in sports in general. So it's been a pretty wild week. So, ready to kind of dig back into baseball. It was weird that they took the weekend off. The first weekend of the playoffs, they just kind of scheduled around it and just didn't play. So that was a little strange, little monkey wrench in scheduling, I guess. But, really weird to take 2 days off.
Yeah, I'm doing well, man. I was a little bit worried I was missing a bunch of games on Saturday, and it's just weird to have no baseball at all because they've been trying to jam all these games in, and then obviously the first time they've had the 3-game series, a bunch of them wrapped up in 2, and so it was pretty quick. Like my team, the Cubs, got eliminated. The Marlins took care of them in 24 hours. Actually, it was 48 hours because the Cubs canceled the game when there was no rain at the stadium on Thursday, I want to say. So it's already been a really weird year. It's been kind of an awkward schedule for DFS. We've got a ton of shows going on at once. That's why we're a little bit late. Golf show is wrapping up. I'm trying to think what tournament that is. I think it's the Shriners for Children's Hospital Open or something like that is going on this week. So if you're coming from over there, thank you for watching. I see a bunch of you already hit the like button. We always appreciate the likes. We've got a ton going on. So in addition to MLB, today we have, let's see what we got for free content. It is the NFL ownership projections. I don't know if you heard, Terry, but there's some pretty massive contests going on tonight for NFL. Weird situation with, not a weird situation, one that we're actually kind of used to at this point. Someone tests positive for COVID. It was Cam Newton. And so they had to move the Chiefs game. It was going to maybe be tomorrow night. It ends up being tonight. They passed all the other tests. Apparently he was the only one who got it. And so they're able to play tonight. So we've got a Monday night football doubleheader. We had the NFL ownership projections open all weekend for you guys for week 4. We're going to keep them open to the public. And then they're going back behind the paywall after tomorrow. So you're playing the 2-gamer. Ownership is massive. It is for every slate. And we think we do the best of projecting it. So go check those out if you haven't already. Also, the MLB lineup builder. If you're looking to hand build some lineups, and I think it might be a pretty good night to hand build lineups because you're going to have some weird situations where you're going to be playing guys probably against your pitcher. I think you have to actually if you're looking to play more than one lineup. And go check out the MLB lineup builder, mlb.lineups.awesemo.com. It's where you find that. 2-gamers. Have you played many of them so far, Terry, this season? Do you remember?
When they've been there, I guess I've played them. I don't. I typically play a lot of main slates, and then a lot of the side slates I don't dive into as much. So like I don't do a lot of like the 2-game late night slates, things like that. But when when they've come up, it's like 2 or 3 games like this, then I'll definitely be in them. So tonight it was weird. We were talking about it before the show with just deciding, with the big NFL tournament available and just deciding where I wanted to put my some of my bankroll tonight. Kind of limiting what I'm doing on the MLB side, but I'm going to run 150 just in the quarter on FanDuel. I think you were saying you're going to do the same. So
yeah. So, I'm going to play some low stakes today. I think if you're around, like if you love MLB and you don't play much NFL, tonight's probably a pretty good night. There's going to be people not paying attention. The second game locks. So the Yankees-Rays game locks in between the 2 Monday night football games. So I think maybe you get some dead lineups. Maybe people forget some lineups on the sites or aren't late swapping. So if you know how to do that effectively, I think this is a really, really good night for it. Especially you're going to basically know half the slate's going to be done by the time this second game starts, right? And so you're going to know if you're in a position to compete in tournaments or if you need to make some swaps. So really good night if you love baseball, if you love MLB DFS. We're only going to have a few more slates going forward here. These playoffs are going to fly through. And then
you're entering the bigger tournament now.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not trying to spend money you don't want to, but you're a good player. So I think maybe you should, Terry.
It's a great point about the late swap, though. I'm actually hoping that the Yankees hold that lineup for another hour or so before that comes out, because I think that'll keep more ownership off of a already somewhat limited ownership lineup there. So that could be a great advantage, like you said.
For sure. And one guy I noticed that's not in the projected lineup is Gary Sanchez. So if for some reason he does end up catching here, maybe you get a low on Gary Sanchez, or you could swap if there's someone unexpected that ends up in this Yankees lineup that we didn't have in earlier. So Alex will get those updated as the lineup gets sent into wherever they actually send it into. The lineup sites will post it, and then we will react pretty quickly, even with everything else going on. So I don't know how Alex does all this. Shout out to him. He's killing it with all these projections, and Eddie, Tom behind the scenes. So those are the guys that are giving you all these amazing tools that you guys are using and we're using every day to try to make some money playing DFS. One more thing I want to mention before we get into the slate, since there's only 2 games. If you guys like free stuff, we're into giving out some free stuff. I posted the link to the giveaway we've got going on tonight. We've also got one on Instagram if you want to go check that one out. Awesemo _com, I think, is our Instagram. If you just search Awesemo, it'll come up, and you got a chance to win an Awesemo Plus Platinum pass for the month, which is $90 value. Today on Twitter, we've got a $250 value giveaway on Awesemo Plus NFL yearly pass. Will Matt Ryan or Aaron Rodgers have more passing yards tonight? That's all you got to do, and you're giving yourself a chance, basically a 50-50 shot. Maybe if you go over to Odd Shopper and check out the props, maybe you can give yourself a 52 to 48 shot if you see what the odds are for passing yards, what the over-unders are. You can see what everyone else has guessed. Only, not a ton of action on this so far. So you're giving yourself a pretty good chance to win an Awesemo Plus NFL yearly pass. So go do that. And yes, Darren, we will be talking baseball. There's only 2 games. So we appreciate you guys stopping by. But of course, we're going to try to sell you some stuff and try to get you to win free stuff as well. So a little bit of selling.
Giveaway for a yearly? Come on. What's the complaint about? That's a hell of a...
It's a pretty good deal. I mean, maybe some of these people just haven't been premium with us. But one day they will. Anything else before we get to it? I guess one thing that I wanted to get your take on, we talked about this last week, right when the first round games were starting, but do you see any prices that stick out to you on like the World Series winners? Because I think the Padres and Dodgers series is really interesting. Dodgers are plus 280 to win the World Series. Padres are plus 900. And those are 2 of the better teams in the MLB. So those are 2 prices that I was really interested in getting your take on. But is there anything that sticks out to you over on Odd Shopper if you've gotten a chance to look at that at all?
So as you're saying it, I'll pull up Odd Shopper and see if anything jumps out to me there. The Padres it's an interesting one as far as the World Series future, and especially compared to that Dodgers price. I just worry about their pitching getting through that Dodgers lineup. We've got Clevenger is questionable to be on the NLDS roster. He might be there, they're saying. So that's a big one for him. Dinelson Lamet, I believe, is not going to be available for the series. So tough ask for them on the pitching side of things. We know their offense is right there with Dodgers. So it'll be funny when those 2 teams beat the hell out of each other. Miami sneaks by the Braves, and then Miami beats up the the down team out of those 2 and gets to the World Series. That'll be fun. But I think the Padres there is a very interesting bet, and that's what's cool about Odd Shopper is just being able to glance at the whole thing as one, see it across a bunch of different betting sites where it's available and getting the different lines. So really like the site there. So I think that's probably the best call as far as a good team. I could see that path for the Marlins to get there. They're scrappy. They're better than we give them credit for. The Braves pitching staff is a little bit down. I don't see them necessarily beating the AL team that would come out, regardless of which one of the 4 it is, though. Right. So that's where I think the Marlins kind of falls apart. I think either San Diego or LA could take the AL teams, though.
Yeah, for sure. And if anybody is out there crazy enough to bet these Marlins, I mean, they just swept the Cubs there in a little 2-game series. They're 20-1 to win the World Series, 1,100. So they're plus 1,100, 11-1 to win the National League. So there you go for your Marlins backers. Put your money where your mouth is. Get over to Odd Shopper and check out everything we've got to offer. If you're looking to bet some NFL props tonight, Odd Shopper is your place to do that. Or if you're looking to bet spreads, might as well get the best number while you're at it. Completely free. You can set up alerts and all that good stuff to make sure you're placing the best bets you possibly can. Let's just go through each of the two games. Usually on Live Before Lock, we kind of talk about the slate in general, but this way we could just get everything out of the way, make sure we're not missing on anything. If you guys have questions in chat, all 200 plus of you, excited to play some playoff Mlb Dfs. If you got any questions, feel free to drop them in chat, and we'd be more than happy to answer them. Let's start with the first game. Astros and the Oakland A's. We got Lance McCullers and Chris Bassett as the starting pitchers. 4.1 implied total for the Astros, 4.5 for the A's. The lines jumped around here a little bit since I entered it in for Jordan. It's around 120, depending on where you look at. Bassett being the slight favorite. Both lineups confirmed for this game. Pricing isn't too big of an issue tonight. I think leaving some salary on the table might be a smart way to go. But if you were stacking one of these teams in just a handful of lineups, which team would you prefer?
So going by the top stacks tool, I guess it's Oakland. I was actually thinking the other way around because I was thinking that Bassett was the better target of the two pitchers, just based on what I was seeing under the covers when I was digging into the numbers, doing some show research and what was kind of coming up in my projections overall. But if you look at what the Astros have done this year, they're just 18th in baseball with a 166 ISO against righties, 102 WRC plus, so slightly above average in creating runs, but not by much. 19.8% strikeout percentage is pretty good. That's for this year. So I think maybe some of that is factored into what Alex was doing, which makes total sense. That's who they are now. What I looked at, though, is if you reset that sample to the start of last year, to the start of 2019, grab a few more games for the active roster, the guys who are currently on the team, they jump all the way to fourth in baseball with a 210 ISO, WRC plus 21% above average, and they only strike out 17.3% of the time. So I was looking at them against Bassett here, but Alex is going the other way. Alex is leaning into the A side of things, taking the target out against McCullers, which I think it's a very good lineup, so it makes some sense. A's were ninth in baseball this year with a 191 ISO against righties, 108 WRC plus, struck out 22.4% of the time, walked 10.2. So, that's since the start of last year. And then this year they were 14th with a 176 ISO, 104 WRC plus, 23.2% strikeout rate. So kind of a similar tale there as far as the two teams go. So Alex is getting more on the A side of things. I think I'm happy following the boss in that decision as far as the top stacks. But on a slate like this, I think we kind of have to get to a little bit of everybody, really. And they're pretty closely ranked. I mean, we're talking about a 30% chance to succeed versus a 29.6% chance. So it's really pretty similarly ranked, similar ownership as well.
Yeah, for sure. And that's the one thing I notice when I'm stacking, when looking at the top stacks tool here. It's a great place to start. You guys hear us talk about it all the time. There's a value metric, there's a top stack metric, and then there's an ownership share. And you're kind of balancing all those things, seeing who's over-owned, who's under-owned. Here, because it's only 4 teams on the slate, I mean, no team is really that over-owned, no team is that under-owned, but there are little edges. Like Oakland looks to be about fairly owned if you're looking at DraftKings. Yankees look to be under-owned kind of across the board a little bit, but they still have a 21% ownership share on DK, 13, almost 14% over on FanDuel. So everyone's getting a little bit of ownership. There's no one team that completely pops off the board. It's not like we've got a 5.5 total and then a bunch of 3.5 totals. These guys are all in a similar range, all quality pitchers and fairly low run totals against. So I'm with you on the Astros there. Looking at my exposures here, I'm getting to the Astros are actually one of my highest owned stacks over on DraftKings. I think Yankees are going to be number 1 for me, but then probably the Astros and the A's after that. So I like them a lot. I guess if I had to point out one hitter that I'm getting a little bit under the field on, it would be Kyle Tucker, just because Like, he is a good player. He is a good hitter. He's $4,100, and I think he's just going to come in a little bit over-owned compared to the rest of the stack. So I'm going to avoid building some stacks, or I'm going to leave him off of some stacks here, just to get a little bit different in my Astros stacks. But I'm still going to have a decent amount of him. And then on FanDuel, let's see what we got here. Let me resort my lineups now that I popped in the uploaded projections. I've got, man, so much Garrett Cole. But yeah, these two teams are my highest owned stacks. My highest owned hitter on the slate over on FanDuel is Chris Davis. How do you feel about that?
Ooh, interesting. Chris Davis is my second highest owned hitter on FanDuel.
All right. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. I mean, swinging back over to DraftKings, Oakland, they're really cheap, but maybe not getting as much ownership as they should, according to some people. Davis is 3,400 over on DK, so not getting to as much of him over there just because he's getting a lot of ownership. I really don't think you can go wrong with either of these stacks. Is there anything that you want to point out about either McCullers or Bassett, just to dive into this as deep as possible on just a two-gamer?
Yeah, so we could touch on them. Jump back up here. I actually scrolled down to something else that I'll get into in a sec. So McCullers was 24.7% strikeout rate this year, 23.6% career. So pitching very well in terms of the strikeouts. Could put up a decent game there as far as that goes. 55 innings this year, only 5 home runs allowed. 3.68 xFIP to his 3.93 ERA. So a little bit better under the covers than he was on the surface. 11.4% swinging strikes was down from 13.5% in 2018, but still, very good. Career 30.4% strikeout rate and a 0.51 home run per 9 against lefties. So he keeps lefties down pretty well. We know there's right-handed power in that A's lineup and right-handed quality, but hopefully he limits the lefties if you got him in there. Throws 40% sinkers, does just a great job with his pitch mix, gets good swing and miss on his curveball to lefties, his changeup to both sides. So really like what he's doing. On the other side of things, Bassett, I kind of mentioned he's not necessarily pitching as well on the under the covers as he is on the surface. 4.49 xFIP to a 2.29 ERA this year. That's over 63 innings. He only allowed 6 home runs, so that's decent. It was a 2.76 BABIP against, so he got a little bit lucky in terms of where the ball was being hit. Only induced 9.9% swinging strikes, which is actually up from 8.9% last year, 8.5% career. And he relies on getting some ground balls, induces some soft contact. He generates a little bit of swing and miss on a curveball and a slider, some on his four-seamer. But overall, I don't see him putting up a huge start here. So he's going to be my lowest owned pitcher in general. And that leads me again back into that Astros stack on that side of things. So I think that makes some sense. Another thing I took a look at, because I think it'll be relevant once we get into the late innings, the high leverage situations, is the bullpens. Which I think could indicate maybe a little bit of why Alex is leaning toward the A side of things. Astros 9th worst xFIP is in terms of bullpen as a team xFIP at 4.82. That's over 211 in the third innings this year. They were 16th with a 24% strikeout rate. Second worst walk rate at 12.2%. They only allowed 24 home runs. It was a 102 home run per 9. So they limited power a little bit, but they had also a smaller sample than a lot of the other teams. A's on the other side of the game, only 200 innings. So again, limited sample. 4th best with 22 home runs allowed, 0.99 per 9. 4.17 xFIP was 7th best, 26.5% strikeout rate. So better bullpen on the A side of things. So if that has to factor in, maybe that leads us to getting to A stacks over Astro stacks.
Yeah, I mean, and that's something you got to consider. If someone hits a home run on this slate, assuming there's not like 7 or 8 of them between these two games, like, you're probably going to need to have that guy in your lineup, or you're going to need to have most of the home runs hit here, especially on DraftKings, which weights home runs a little bit more. FanDuel, more like you can get by more with base hits and walks and then getting a couple runs here. But on DK, like, you pretty much need the home runs. And so if you're going up against the worst bullpen, that's something you want to make a note from. That will mostly be reflected in the implied totals. But it's always nice to see what a team has if you can get past the starting pitcher. Like, if he only goes 4 or 5 innings, teams pull the starters pretty early if they're getting in trouble, especially if it's not their ace pitcher, which McCullers hasn't been pitching like an ace this season. One thing looking at Bassett, and you did mention this a little bit, people also mentioning the home splits. I don't really look at that much just because
important to note that this game is not at home.
Right. And
this game's being played in San Diego. None of that happens. You have to switch your park factors.
Yeah, like that. Exactly. And the park factors are going to be factored into the implied totals. And so I don't care about it that much, but always an interesting talking point to
sure.
try to understand.
And if you're looking at anything, look at his road splits or look at what he's done in San Diego if he's ever pitched there.
Right. Bassett's swinging strike numbers have been really solid in his last 3 starts, 13%, basically 13% again, 12.9, and then almost 20% in his last start. So maybe he's figured something out a little bit. The results have been awesome in those 3 starts as well, going at least 6 innings pitch with 6 strikeouts in all of those. Yeah, I mean, he's been solid, much better than I would have thought before giving this kind of a second look. But
and I actually got that wrong, by the way. This one's in Los Angeles. The other AL game is in San Diego.
Okay.
I had that backwards. So, yeah, but still not taking place in his home park. So get that home split out of there.
Yeah, don't worry about home splits here. I think in general, don't worry about home splits. Worry about all
the games going forward are neutral sites, guys. So
yeah. Looking at where Bassett's at for me, he's the lowest on pitcher on DK. Like I just, even though he has been good, he doesn't project all that well. Isn't a huge strikeout pitcher. I think McCullers just has the higher upside. I'm probably playing some more Astros stacks. Well, depending on the site. I mean, it's pretty flat all around, but I think I prefer McCullers if I can only have one of these guys take the $500. Yeah, just kind of move on there. But anything else left in this game you want to mention?
I'm with you on McCullers as far as which of the pitchers I would prefer there. Not getting to much Bassett really on FanDuel. So, and that looks kind of like jibes with what Alex is seeing in the top starters tool. Bassett's ranked in the bottom of both. Picking up a little bit of ownership on him on both sites, you know, if you wanted to play the leverage game there. But that would really be the biggest thing he's got going in his favor.
Yeah. Let's go to the next game, and then we'll just talk about like macro strategy for these 2 gamers, and then we'll have a bunch of time for questions. So if you guys got any, feel free to drop them in chat. This slate doesn't lock until 4:07 Eastern time, so we've still got about a half an hour. Maybe get out of here a couple minutes early so you guys can finish up your lineups and move it on from there. I'm sure you guys have NFL and everything else to do. There's probably a ton of other sports, esports going on. We've got esports packages as well. So head over to Awesemo and see all the free stuff as well as the premium tools we've got going on. Yankees and Rays, minus 143 for the Yanks and Garrett Cole. Formidable opponent though, Blake Snell, 8K over on DraftKings. He's plus 131 right now. Cole just 8,600, just $500 more than Chris Bassett. So hard to get excited about Bassett. DK up to their old tricks, pricing these guys way down. I know with the 2-gamer, you have to have some sort of soft pricing just to give people room to work with. Otherwise, everyone will just like play the optimal lineup or whatever in GPPs, and then there's a ton of dupes. But man, $8,600 for Garrett Cole, a 3.2 implied total going against him, and 90% ownership over on DK. I unintentionally would be hitting the lock button on Garrett Cole. What's your plan with him here?
Yeah, I mean, it's 90% ownership is quite a bit. You know, of course, we're working at 200 on the 2-pitcher site, but still, I mean, that is a huge share to bite off. But I think he's in the best spot on the slate overall. He's probably the best pitcher overall on the slate. We just saw him the last start out. He tied Tom Seaver's 1973 playoff performance, the only 2 guys in baseball history in the playoffs to strike out 13 and walk none, which is pretty damn impressive. He allowed a home run and 2 earned overall in that game, but you don't really worry about that. He makes up for it with the strikeouts. When he gives up some of the long balls that people worry about over the course of the season, typically he's doing it without many guys on base. So, yeah, I think it makes a ton of sense to have a bunch of Cole. Personally, I'm getting away from him just to get away from the heavy ownership and do different things. That's on FanDuel where he's 54% owned. I think there's room to work with some McCullers and some Snell over there and, play it a bit differently. I'll have plenty of Cole, but I'll be under the 54% probably just as a specific decision point for how I'm going to play the tournament. But I think he's definitely the best option on the slate. If you're building one lineup, I think he's your pitcher regardless of the ownership. Get different in other ways. He is just going to be – he's in a dynamite spot. The Rays overall, 12th in baseball, 178 ISO against righties this year, 104 WRC plus, 26.4% strikeout rate, which I think is what it's all about right here. I think he's got the opportunity to sit down a ton of these Rays hitters. And they didn't put Austin Meadows in the lineup despite activating him for the series. So their best lefty is not going to be in the lineup tonight, which I was a little concerned about.
Yeah. I mean, just the strikeout numbers are absurd. So I think Cole's almost not even that interesting to talk about on DraftKings specifically, just because it's such a high likelihood that he's a top 2 pitcher that, like, even if you get the guy that dongs against him, like, congrats, someone hits a solo home run against Cole. But, like, you just need so much more for him not to be worth it at 8,600. And so he's 90% owned. It's baseball. Random things happen. He could go out and have a bad start and go 5 innings and allow 5 earned runs and strike out, 5 guys. And that's not going to do the trick. But, like, he just the strikeouts are just so likely for a pitcher of his caliber that I don't even think it makes sense to get weird on DraftKings when your other options are McCullers, Bassett, and Snell, who's awesome. McCullers does have upside. But yeah, like, he's just so easy to fit in that I think you just take whatever amount of Cole you can possibly get. That number is probably going to be close to 100 if you're using the projections, and just move on from there. Get weird with your other roster spots, and try to avoid the lineups that are going to be the most heavily duped. If you were playing, so if you're hand building a lineup with Cole, what would be the max number of players you would be able to use against him? Because I think that's a way also you can get different with Cole. Like, it's hard to play him if you're not going to allow any Rays to be in your lineup if you're using an optimizer. But if you are, what's kind of your magic number tonight against Cole specifically?
I'm probably just looking for one.
Okay.
You mentioned the importance of trying to pick off that home run, and I really think that's the case. We saw it the other night scoring. I had a few lineups that were competitive with a few zeros just because I had the home runs. And if you can do that, if you can thread the needle and pick the right guy, then I think that's really the one that you want. We talked about the strikeouts. He's excellent at limiting opportunities, Cole. The last 2 years in a row, he had a 5.9% walk rate. He struck out 32.6% of hitters this year, 39.9% last year. He just doesn't allow a ton of guys on base. Right. So it's difficult to pick off 2 hitters against him. You're not necessarily going to find that rising tide where a guy's going to hit, it's unlikely that a guy's going to hit a grand slam here and you're going to have 3 guys benefit from the home run. Is what I'm trying to say. 3 other guys and then the hitter benefit from the home run. So I think our best bet is trying to pick off that one hitter. And that's typically my theory on the small plate. Anyway, I'm usually not going to go to 2 hitters against my pitcher.
Okay. Yeah. I'm going to allow 2 against Cole, but I think most lineups will have 1 or 0. Like, even if you're making 150. So I'm pretty comfortable with 1 against anyone because it's a 2-game slate. Like, there's probably not going to be any pitcher that throws a complete game shutout here. All the teams are probably going to score a run or 2. And maybe you just get to that roster construction. If you're talking about a large field tournament that you end up hitting the nuts playing a guy or 2 against some of these guys. So I think in general, one is certainly okay for tonight, talking about DraftKings or FanDuel. 2 I would consider on DraftKings specifically, I should say. I think on FanDuel, you probably just want to limit to 1. You need the highest raw point pitcher, and you can only stack 4, right? And so just going like a 4-3 or 4-2 or something like that, take a one-off, allow a one-off against your pitcher, but you might not even need it in a lot of these lineups because the pricing is, per usual, very soft over there as well. So,
and with the flex spot on FanDuel, you can do that with moving around who you're using as your one-off with a little bit more freedom than where you have just the restricted actual baseball lineup spots on DK. So it makes sense to just play it as a one-off over there a little bit more too. So I like what you're saying there. And then I saw in the chat somebody was asking just which of the guys to maybe look for. And Emac mentioned a lefty that I like who's not in the lineup, Yoshi Satsugo. I liked his upside tonight. But really, I'm looking into basically the top end of the lineup. They're leading off Yandy Diaz for some reason. I'm not in love with that play. He's decent on base this year in the split, so I think that's what they're looking at. But the next three hitters, Brandon Lowe, Randy Arozarena, and Jimmy Choi back in the lineup. All three of them, they've got decent upside for a home run. And then if you're looking late in the lineup, maybe pick off a lefty, Kevin Kiermaier down there, not drawing a ton of ownership. Basically inexpensive on both sites. So DraftKings in particular, he's under 10% owned. You can even pick off a shortstop option. He's right-handed, but you can grab Willie Adames down that way at 6% owned on DK too. Different, kind of mix up your shortstop spot a little bit. Not a lot of people doing that.
Yeah, I think anybody at the top of the lineup makes sense. I don't know. It's hard to pick anybody against Cole, but, he does give up home runs in a lot of his starts. So my favorite guy would probably be Choi, looking at FanDuel, $2,600 first baseman. The opportunity cost when you're playing a first baseman is usually pretty high. Voit, Olsen, and who is it for Gurriel are your other options over on FanDuel for first base. So, I'm sure a lot of people are going to go over to Voit. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of Matt Olson versus a righty as well. Maybe you get Choi a little bit under owned if you can somehow get the home run. Even if you play Cole in that lineup, you might be onto something there if the other first baseman fail. So those would be the kind of things I'd be thinking about rather than trying to avoid Cole, at least over on DK. On FanDuel, I just recrunched and let me resort here. I got to, where's Cole? I got to 71% Cole. So I'm even eating the chalk over there. He's just over 50% owned, but I think he's the best option. That's not to say I'm not going to have any of Snell. I'm certainly going to, but it's pretty much going to be those two guys for me tonight on FanDuel. And then, like I said, on DK, I think you just eat the chalk. Snell on the other side, on either site. And then do you want to talk about this matchup? What are you doing with Snell tonight? 3.9 implied total. That's one of the lowest the Yankees have had all season. Snell, a phenomenal pitcher in his own right. What's the play here with him?
Yeah, so it's weird. It's coming up kind of both sides of that coin for me. The Yanks are probably going to be my highest owned stack, and Snell might be my highest owned FanDuel pitcher. So it's going to be a tale of two very different lineup constructions basically for me going into FanDuel tonight. He came up across 547 lineups, crunching with a few different factors, including my projections, Alex's projections, and a couple other things. Snell is my highest owned pitcher at 35%. That's not exactly what's going to go into FanDuel, of course, because I'm only playing 150 as a subset there. So we'll see how that comes out. That'll probably come down. Cole will go up from where he is, but I will definitely have a pretty decent share of Blake Snell tonight, along with a decent share of the Yankees bats. You hit it on the head. He's pitching great. 31% strikeout rate this year, 8.9% walk rate. He had issues with the home run as well. 1.80 home run per 9 this year, so a little bit bumpy. That's 10 home runs over 50 innings. He had 4 games this season with 2 home runs allowed, which is more games than Cole had with 2 home runs allowed. Cole had more games with at least 1 home run allowed. His career 31.2% strikeout rate, so he's like right on the career numbers. That's against lefties, I'm sorry. 27.6% strikeout rate against righties, so it's down a little bit against righties. 7 of the 10 home runs that he gave up this year came to right-handed hitters, and for his career, 52 of the 60 home runs he's given up have all been to righties hitters. We know all the Yankees' power is on the right side of the dish. They're just loaded with righty bats. So that leads me into those Yankee stacks, makes me worry about his potential to give up a lot of runs here. He's not a guy who does as good a job as Cole does with limiting the base runners. He gives up more walks. He's 10.1% career walk rate, 8.9% this year, so he got it under control a little bit. But he's still going to have more guys, more opportunity to hit a multi-run home run, a 2-run, 3-run shot that has more guys score points. So I am really leaning into some of these Yankees, and it's all about a lot of the big bats. They're going pretty dramatically under-owned in terms of the team ownership on FanDuel. It's still, on a normal slate, it would be a big number, but 13% ownership compared to their 24% probability of being the top stack, I like that advantage. So I'm definitely leaning into a lot of the Yankees bats here along with that.
Yeah, I like the Yankees. Even though I love Snell, you're getting the Yankees that are coming in a little bit undervalued. Hard not to like them if you look at the top stack tool. A DK only under-owned stack on the slate. And yeah, they're still getting some ownership, but it's not as much as they should be, according to Alex. So that's always a good way to start building your lineups. I'm trying to resort here and change my exposures around, and I just can't get away from Snell at all. So I'm not getting to a ton of Yankees bats over on FanDuel, but I get like it looks like a lot of 2 and 3 mans that I'm getting over there rather than the 4 mans. Getting a lot of Oakland and in Houston when I factor in ownership, some and all of that. So people in the chat, I see you guys talking about payout structures on a DraftKings showdown. I think it's a 150K prize pool, and it is, let me check this out. I think it's 50K to first, so a third to first. Is that on the, oh no. Wait, what is this? Okay, the 70K, $15, 20K to first, 5th place is 1K. Yeah, I mean, you've really got to finish top 2 or you get first in that if you're going to be max entering that for a bunch of slates in a row. I mean, you see this all the time, and especially in the showdowns, like the sites want you to tie. They want more people to have money. They want less people to be drained of their money. So it makes more sense to go find a better tournament if you're worried about like the day-to-day variance. I think in the long term though, like it's not that bad if you continue to play the same stuff, if you can avoid going broke to where you have to stop playing or something like that. But yeah, that's kind of the state of DFS. What do you think about prize structures? Are there any tournaments that you always try to get into that you really like on any site?
I usually play the probably the worst possible tournaments for your bankroll in terms of which ones you should be playing and should not be. That's, yeah, guys, you do not want my advice as far as bankroll management, which tournaments to enter. The guy to talk to about that is EMAC. I think he's still in the YouTube chat right now. He is great at it. So I actually need to follow his advice a little bit more as far as what I'm doing with my money. Because I'm bad at chasing the big prizes. I mean, I like to think I have a decent chance of picking some of them off, and I've done it in the past. But yeah, it's not a healthy decision that I make a lot of the time. So today I'm just in the quarter on FanDuel so far.
Yeah, I mean, and there's always a different side of it, right? Only 1 or 2 guys is going to be happy when that tournament's over each night, right? And then everyone else is going to be disappointed, especially if they put a handful of lineups. But I think like if you read some of the articles on the site that are free, like if you go to the Learn DFS tab, Alex will basically say, as long as you're building lineups that are good long-term lineups in whichever contest you're playing, whether it's cash, GPP, super top heavy GPP, showdown, 2-game slate, like we've got tonight for MLB and NFL, as long as you're building quality lineups and factoring in ownership projections and weigh that against projections and stuff like that, the top heavy prizes are attainable. Like you can make profit in those tournaments long term, but you just have to know what you're going up against. You have to know that you're going to lose a lot and a lot more in that tournament compared to a tournament that might pay out 15 or 20% to first, and the 5th place prize might be a quarter of that compared to 1/100th is what you're going to see in some of these other tournaments. So always look at prize pool, always look at rake, manager fee, whatever you want to call it. Those are the things that are going to help your long-term ROI. Yeah. Whenever EMAC's on the show, make sure to get his thoughts on that, because he's got some really good ones and ones that I should be following more as well. So I'm in the same boat as you, Terry.
Yeah, he's very good with the the building lineups and how to manage your money the right way, how to look for the upside in some of those tournaments, and how to build from small stakes and move your game up too, which is part of it. It's not, you shouldn't just jump into the deep end of the pool if you're not experienced, if you're not building good lineups yet. You want to start small, start in the shallow end, build your way up and build a good bankroll. But you're right, it is amazing how much losing, popping one of those big GPPs does cover. So yeah, there is upside in playing it if you're going about it the right way, if you've got sound process, if you're experienced, and that's what you hope to get to. So it's really truly all about just repeating good process over and over and over and over again. That's why they call it a grind.
Yeah, exactly. And 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 one thing I always do is I oftentimes will like lose for a week straight in a daily sport like NHL. I play pretty much every day. MLB, I haven't been able to because of NHL was going on, and so I was giving priority to that. But if you're playing a daily sport, weekly sport, whatever it is, every week, you can't just change up your strategy. You gotta kind of stick to it and keep maybe some of the same things you were doing, but always be trying to improve as well. Like even if you win, I know everyone's gets into this habit where when they win, they just think that they can continue to do the exact same thing, but who knows? There might have been an error in your sheet and you should have actually had the lineup that you ended up on. So you always want to make sure you're checking your stuff and asking around. I mean, I think like we had office hours today and Josh was giving out some really good nuggets about lineup building and max entering and should you max enter every tournament and answers to questions like that. So office hours are a great place to start if you guys are premium members. If you want to become a premium member for the low price of $3.95 per week, we've got a really awesome deal going on right now with our NFL Express package. Again, $3.95 per week. With that, you will get everything for Showdown, projections, ownership, Awesemo's top Showdown plays. So similar to what we have with the top stacks for MLB and NFL main slate. We've also got that for the single game. So chances of being the top captain, chances of being second through sixth finisher, which is what you're going to need on DraftKings, second through fifth over on FanDuel. And then you also get the Express Top Stack tool for the main slate and the Express Lineup Builder as well. So it's a really good price. That's not even a promotion. That's just what we have. We just added more stuff onto it. Showdown's a ton of fun. And I'm sure Terry will be joining me firing at some Showdown tonight. We've got a couple of them, as well as a millionaire maker on DK, 200K to first on FanDuel. Should be a fun night of sports.
Yeah, definitely. It's going to be a blast with the dual football games. That's a rare Monday and should be a lot of fun. I love that they threw in a little 2-game slate with some nice prizes on it. So definitely going to be joining you in those and joining in the FanDuel tourney here if I can manage to get these lineups entered. Yeah,
I'm going to start getting mine in here as well. Kay Johnson says, play Correa. I'll be playing a bunch of Correa, 3,200 over on FanDuel, 4K over on DK. So we're just waiting for the Yankees lineup. I don't think we're going to get this before lock. Let's see. We got 4 hours until this game starts, a little over 4 hours. Rays came out with their lineup really early. And so you might be seeing some dead Yankees lineups if one or two of these guys is not actually in the lineup. We'll see if Sanchez finds a way to sneak in there, but we've got Higashioka in batting ninth for the Yankees right now. Is there anything else? Go ahead.
I expect Higgy catching. They've been using him as a caddy for Garrett Cole. So I expect him there. The way that they would work Sanchez into the lineup is the projected, and what I expect them to do in left field would be Clint Frazier over Brett Gardner. If they wanted to get cute, they could put Giancarlo Stanton in the outfield and DH Gary Sanchez. That would be an interesting approach to defense on the slate. I'm not sure if they would do it. I think they're more likely to go with the standard lineup, and Gary's probably going to sit. We could see him pinch hit late. Could be an interesting play there if you're into throwing in a random bat as a pinch hitter and really really throwing a dart. I like his power upside if he gets into the game, but I don't know that it's a tough call to project him in the starting lineup for me right now.
Yeah. Maybe he comes in for a pinch hit opportunity, but that's probably as good as you're going to get. Let's see. MLB is the nicest chat. Jordan says Jordan's liking the MLB chat behind the scenes. Jordan produces a lot of our shows, not every single one, but a lot of them. So he's the one making it look nice for the YouTube audience, Twitch, Periscope, wherever you're watching. Jordan Klein doing a killer job behind the scenes, as always. Bryant says, stack the first game. That's what I'm doing in a lot of my FanDuel lineups tonight. I'm basically sticking to the first game, hoping that it goes nuts. I'll have a couple of Yankee stacks in there. Not really going to have many Tampa Bay Rays. I just can't really stack against Garrett Cole. I'm going to have guys that I hope hit home runs. And that's really about it. If you can, it takes a ton of luck to bank these 2-game slates, and especially bank it with a unique lineup. No matter what tournament you're playing, if there's more than like 1,000 entries, there's going to be a bunch of dupes all over the place. What's your strategy for avoiding dupes, Terry, if you have one?
So I'm running a fair mix of different kinds of constructions just to try and, build all kinds of different and throw a bunch of different things at it. Throw the kitchen sink at it, allow the one hitter. I even ran one since you mentioned it earlier, allowing two coming back against my pitcher. So I'm just trying to get different. I'm super comfortable leaving money on the table, which was something we were maybe going to address. And just looking through crunches, I pulled out two different lineups. The lineup that was projected the highest using Alex's projections is on FanDuel here, is a A's Astros 4-3 with a Rays one-off coming back against Garrett Cole. Spends $35,000, and then I have another lineup next to it that's projected just about 9 points less. Spends only $33,300. Uses Blake Snell instead of Garrett Cole, and uses a 4-4 Astros A's. So you can get to lineups that are somewhat equivalent, and there are lineups that are, that was pulling the lowest salaried lineup. So there are lineups that spend $34,200, something like that, that are even closer projected. So you can get reasonably projected lineups close to the top. And the most important thing when you're building for baseball anyway is to be building lineups that make sense, build well-correlated lineups that are using the actual batting order to put tightly correlated hitters together in good spots. So I'm always comfortable leaving money on the table for baseball. And I think particularly on a two-gamer, if you leave a lot on the table, you can get different.
Yeah, for sure. I'm seeing a bunch of my lineups, like 1,000 left over on FanDuel. I think that's perfectly fine. If you're leaving more than that, like maybe you're just stacking the Rays just to have some Rays stacked or something like that, that's also fine. Just because you're getting so much ownership or so much leverage against the chalkiest pitcher that we're going to have on a slate this season. But yeah, I think as long as the lineup correlates and you're somewhat close to the cap, whether you're getting to 80 or 90% of the cap, you're probably fine. And you're going to avoid dupes with every dollar that you leave on the table. People that hand build, especially, they don't want to leave money on the table. Like I know when I hand build, I've been trying to do that more, like open up the slate and just see where my hands kind of take me. And in addition to the ownership projections, just see where, what's everyone going to go to when they start building out their lineup, who are the first guys they're going to put in, and then what are popular combinations, and try to get somewhat away from those or have less in the field on the most popular combinations. And I think, I think we've mentioned this on a show recently on a shorter slate, but multiplying each player's ownership by each other and then multiplying that by the field size. So if it's a 30,000 man field, it'd be 30,000 times, Garrett Cole's ownership times Carlos Correa's ownership or whoever it is, all throughout the lineup. That's a good way to see how many dupes you're going to get in addition to maybe avoiding the highest ownership sums as well. So just adding together all the ownerships of every player in your lineup. You can still play chalk and be successful as long as you got one or two low owned pieces. We say it all the time. I mean, Alex always plays a ton of chalk in pretty much every sport, even the highest variance sport in MLB. And a lot of times it's that 2-man stack or it's that 3-man mini stack that ends up getting him to win over a bunch of these other guys that are playing the same kind of players. So, yeah, I mean, there's a ton of different ways to try to figure out dupes. It's not a perfect science, but I think as long as you're doing something to avoid the most heavily duped lineups tonight, you're probably ahead of a lot of the field.
Yeah, and look, it's difficult to make every single lineup out of 150 entirely unique. I mean, that's obviously the goal. That would be nice, but it's not necessarily going to be possible on a slate like this. So you just want to make it so that you're getting as many of your lineups to be as unique as possible. One thing you mentioned, going through the slate by hand, and I really like doing that. I do that pretty much every day for all the different sports that I'm playing. It's kind of revelatory about the inflection point, right? when you get to a certain salary spend and then you've got that util spot is still open, where do the hands go, like you put it, which is a great way to look at it. So is the public going to be clicking mostly on Aaron Judge in that spot, just dropping him at, hey, huge power upside, he's Aaron Judge, whatever. So maybe you get different by, all right, instead of putting Aaron Judge in that spot, I'm going to play Gleyber Torres. I'm going to play, Luke Voigt, who's getting not very much ownership at all. Huge ownership advantage on Voigt today. So maybe we make that decision. That becomes an inflection point for you on the slate. And you can get different just by doing that. And you're putting in maybe not an equivalent hitter, but certainly a very, very good option. And you're making yourself different while staying within the same stack and making basically the same decision. So I think that's an interesting thing to look into.
Yeah, absolutely. People always say like avoid dupes, but it's hard if you're not good at Excel. One way that Alex has recommended is, you make maybe 2 times the amount of lineups you need. So if you're 20 max, you make 40 lineups, and then you cut off the top 10 of the top 10 projected. I know it's not going to feel good to cut out the best lineups. And then you cut out the top 10 owned as well. And that's a way to ensure that you're not getting the highest owned lineups. You're not getting the highest projected lineups, but you're still getting lineups that project well, but have much, much less ownership than the lineups that everybody's going to end up on, especially in a sport like baseball. Like in NBA, it becomes tougher and tougher to fade the chalk. In NFL, to some extent too, with like a running back, but in MLB, like Trout can go 0 for 5, Judge could go 0 for 5 in, the best spot. It happens all the time. So getting different at 1 or 2 spots is the key on short slates for me in MLB DFS. What else do we have going on today? I did mention the Express ad read coming up after this, and we've got just a couple more minutes, and then we'll get out of here. Live before lock. I guess that's going to be in about 2 hours. EMAC, who's in chat right now or was in chat, EMAC and Kyle Dvorak are going to break down the 2-game slate, the showdowns, everything you need to know for tonight. There are 2 NFL games, so if you're looking to place the 2-game NFL DFS, ownership projections are still free. We had them free for the weekend. I'm sure you guys enjoyed those. We're going to keep them open for one more day because of the unique scenario with having multiple games tonight. But go check those out. Right on the homepage on the NFL tab, you just go to Daily Fantasy, find the NFL main slate ownership projections. That's where you'll find the numbers for tonight. And speaking of dupes, that's a great way to avoid dupes is using our ownership projections. If you're looking to play these massive tournaments, top heavy tournaments, and trying to solo bank tonight, whether you're playing showdown or main slate.
Yeah, and they're great to use alongside some of the other tools. I love putting the individual ownership projections right next to our top stacks tool, and then just looking for ways to weave in and out of those, highly ranked but super popular teams. And I mentioned a couple guys, just before. I think tonight you can do that if Gio Urshela, Clint Frazier, and Luke Voigt are all in the lineup hitting near one another. Those guys are all trending under 10% ownership on FanDuel. Voigt is the only one over 15% on DK. So you look for opportunities like that where, they're part of a team that on DK has 25+% ownership on most of these hitters across the board. But you can use the individual ownership to thread the needle through that stack and get to some of that Yankees upside.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't really have much else to add to that. I think you avoid dupes, play some of the best plays, and then play a 7-hitter instead of the chalk fill-in after that. If you need to do something like that, someone weird is going to hit a home run tonight, or have a ceiling game out of these 4 teams that's not going to be under like 15-20% owned, and you're probably going to end up needing that guy in your lineup. So weird things happen all the time in baseball. Embrace the variance and try to avoid the field as much as possible. If you guys can't ever catch our shows live, we do for the strategy shows especially. So like every show that happened this morning, PGA, Showdown Strategy, NFL Week 4 recap, you can find those on Apple Podcasts. If you don't want the feed with everything, the Awesemo Daily Fantasy feed, you can go to the Awesemo NFL feed. If you just want NFL shows, if you just want MLB shows, Awesemo Mlb Dfs is a great place to go. Again, Spotify and Apple Podcast. If you guys could, please help us out. Help us beat the YouTube algorithms and drop us a like on your way out of here. Anything else you want to add, Terry, before we close it out?
Just because I see it popping up a little bit in the YouTube chat, guys, don't sweat BVP. Don't worry about stats from the team with guys that weren't even on the team now, aren't on the team now from 3 years ago when Snell was pitching against the Yankees in a different spot, different pitcher. Don't sweat that stuff. Worry about the stuff that we talk about.
Yeah, BVP, it just doesn't matter. There's not a big enough sample for it to matter yet. So unless you're getting 500 plate appearances or something against the same pitcher, but even then, it wouldn't really matter because it would be over a span of 10 or 20 years or something like that. So it just, players change, their skill levels change. Don't sweat BVP, just like you said, Terry. So that's going to be enough to get us out of here. Thanks for joining, everybody. Again, hit us with a like on the way out. Hit the notification bell so you get notified when all of our shows go live. And we will be back tomorrow breaking down the slate on Live Before Lock. Good luck.